Well, good evening, Junction. As you can see, I am not Todd Berkey because I have hair. So let's just go ahead. We'll get all the Todd jokes out of the way. It'll be great. But my name is Sam Payne, and I am the youth minister at our Southwood campus. And so I get the joy and privilege of hanging out with a bunch of junior high and high school students. And let me say, I am so thankful to be here talking among peers tonight. Because the amount of times that I have to deal with junior hires going through puberty, the amount of times that I have to deal with high schoolers who still haven't figured out how to use deodorant, and the amount of time that I see them get so distracted, I think they have the attention span less than a squirrel. So know that when we come here tonight, I'm so thankful and so excited just to spend some time diving into God's Word tonight. And so I wanted to kick things off with a family vacation that I took a couple years ago. And I don't know about y'all, but when I vacation, I am not the person that is like, I just want to hop from coffee shop to coffee shop. I want to go look at all the sights. I want to do things that are adventurous. I want to do things that are like really, really fun that I probably can't do here. I want to do things that I like maybe get a little bit dangerous. Right, one person. We're going on a vacation together. But my family is not like that. My two younger sisters, they love coffee shop vibes. They love chill music. They want to read a book in a hammock, which is fun for like 10 minutes. And then I'm like, let's go do something. And so this is what we were able to do. We went on here we go, whitewater rafting trip. So this is my family. This is me and my two younger sisters, and this is our tour guide. I forget his name. We're just going to call him Beardy because he looks like a manly man. But we did this whitewater rafting trip. I had never been, but I was so amped up to go on a whitewater rafting trip. And if you've never been on a whitewater rafting trip, basically you have a tour guide, thank goodness, because you're going down all these rapids, and there's a high potential for danger. So you have adventure, danger, and you're outside. Like, this is great. But I remember looking at this picture, remembering these moments a couple years ago, because this was like the calm before the storm, right? In every good story, something happens. And so as we were paddling down the river, right, our tour guide would say, 3 forward. And he would be barking out these commands. And 3 forward basically just means, yeah, you go forward 3 times, right? I have an engineering degree, by the way, and so, right, I can do math. 3 forward. And he'd say, right side, 2 back, right? And all of us that are on the right side, 2 back. And so he would be sitting here talking about all these commands, and we would follow them. And you're like looking out over this river, and you see all these rapids, you see all these rocks, and homeboy's just sitting there saying, left, 3, right, 7. I don't know how he comes up with any of this stuff, but that's not my job. My job is just to sit there and row. But of course, we have moments like this where and this isn't even the bad picture yet, but my younger sister is already, like, she's the pre-freak out, right? Like, it's like you haven't freaked out yet, but you're going to freak out. She's the pre-freak out. My other sister, I don't know what she's doing. I don't know where she's looking. And you can't tell, but I'm like somewhat smiling because I know what's ahead, and it's adventure and danger, and I'm ready for this. So sure enough, here we go. That's the next photo. Can't see anything. Can't see anything. And so we're completely soaked. We're wet. It's great. And then we have this moment afterwards where we're all sitting there laughing, just enjoying getting soaked in this whitewater rafting trip. Now, here's the thing. There's one thing weird about this photo. Beardy over here, if you see him, what does he look like? Stone cold, focused, not enjoying the moment. Why? Because that's not his job. His job, while we're sitting there goofing around, laughing at each other, his job is the next rapid that's coming. His job is to forward think. His job is to say, all right, left 3, right 4. He is the leader, and we're all kind of following him. And so as I reflect and think about that moment, It's crazy to think that the only job I really had was to just follow him. He had been down this river many times. He knew how to whitewater raft. He knew all the equipment and all the fail-safes. He knew what to do if one of us fell over, and we did. He knew all these worst-case scenarios because he had done this so many different times. I cannot imagine if I were to show up right on this whitewater rafting trip, and Beardy looks like he just got out of bed. He's like, hey, guys, y'all ready for the whitewater rafting trip? I just got my certification like 10 minutes ago. I haven't been down this river yet, but it seems fun. Oh, you guys don't have paddles? It's all right. We'll just use our hands, right? Like, no. I want someone who is experienced, who knows what they're doing, and can lead me, and I can follow them so that I can enjoy what that looks like, right? Because my job is not to lead this rafting trip. My job is to be a part of it and to grow and to enjoy it. And so I don't know about you, but when I look at moments like this, and I see the joy and excitement, but I also see the tension, pressure of the guide and what's coming next, I feel comforted because of the fact that I can be completely oblivious, completely unaware, but trust in the fact that somebody else knows what they're doing. And I don't know if you've ever felt moments like that. I don't know if you've ever felt moments if you've ever showed up to a new job. You got a new job, congratulations. You walk in the door and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know what all of this stuff is. And you have somebody who comes alongside you and says, hey, I've been assigned to you. I'm going to walk you through your first couple of months. Ask me any question you want. I'll walk with you. And you're like, wow, that's awesome. Or maybe it's something where you come up and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're doing this. And you have a mentor who's walking through. If you didn't know, that was a filler because I forgot what I was going to say. And so that's my one mess up for the night. But maybe you have a mentor who is walking through hard parts of life with you, and you're like, man, thank the Lord that you know what you're talking about. You're experienced enough where you've been through this, you've walked through this, and you're like, I can trust you with this because what I'm walking through, you've already walked through it. And so we have moments in our lives, we have moments where we are so thankful that other people take the lead, and we can just be, and we can just be encouraged because other people are more experienced, they're leading, and they're walking through with us. And as I was sitting here praying and prepping over just tonight, that thought kept coming in my mind. What would it look like if we really did let God take the lead? What would it look like if we really let God take the lead? Because I feel like in our jobs sometimes it's easy to let other people lead. It's easy for them to mentor. It's easy for us to just walk with them. But when it comes with our relationship with God, if you're anything like me, that is extremely hard to let God lead. Because we want to be in control, we want to be in the know, we want to dictate our own path. And sometimes when those paths don't align with God's will, what do? We're like, no, I don't need you. I'm going to do this my way. And so tonight we are going to be in one of the most popular Psalms. We can probably sit here and recite it, but we're going to be in Psalms 23, and we're going to answer this question of what does it look like to follow someone? What does it look like to follow God? And so my hope and my prayer tonight is that Psalms 23 would not just be, oh my gosh, Sam, I learned that in Awanas. I've read that passage so many different times. Sam, I can sit there and recite it. Honestly, Sam, I've probably read it more than you have. Which may be fair. But the reality is that God's word can become afresh and new, and when we look at passages we've read so many different times, they can come alive because our circumstances and our experiences always change. So my hope tonight is when we read this popular psalm from David, that we would grow in our understanding of it, and that we'd be encouraged by it tonight. So we're going to be in Psalms 23. You can keep track. One thing I want for tonight is for us to just know this, that the Lord is a good shepherd who provides and protects. That's the main point. That's the finale. That's the cinematic end. You can literally get up and just leave right now because you've already got it. That's where we're ending tonight, right? Two things. One main point. The Lord is the good shepherd who provides and protects. 1 point, 2 parts. So let's dive into some of this context. So this is a common psalm from David. We don't know exactly the context for this psalm, but it's more likely David is fleeing from a guy named Absalom. Right, it's this kid trying to kill him. Normal family drama that we all go through, right? He's fleeing. He's probably going to die. And so he's in this really, really tough spot when he writes this psalm. And there's 2 kind of metaphors in this psalm. The first one is the Lord is my shepherd, right? And then the other part is the Lord is my host, which is verses 5 and 6. So tonight we're just going to be in verses 1 through 4. We're literally going to spend the remainder of our time just in 4 verses. How crazy is that? Because the Lord is my shepherd is where we're going to be diving into tonight. So let's read this. It says, the Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me besides quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. What a beautiful psalm. What a comforting psalm. What a comforting moment as we read this in whatever circumstances we're in. And it's crazy to think about that David, when he wrote this, is like fleeing for his life. The Lord is my shepherd, right? Green pastures, quiet waters. This seems like the vacation I don't want, right? Like, give me the danger, give me the fleeing, give me the running. But the Lord as shepherd is a quiet, still, restful shepherd. And so we're going to see how the Lord provides and how the Lord protects from that. So we're going to walk through this. Let's walk through this first part. Lord provides. So we have the Lord is my shepherd. And so shepherd's kind of a weird word, right? Shepherd involves sheep, and you're like kind of guiding sheep. And it feels weird to say the Lord is my shepherd, because if you look at all the ancient Near East, all the Old Testament, shepherds were like kind of the lowliest profession. They literally dealt with sheep who were smelly and stinky. It's almost like youth ministry, right? Gotcha. But the Lord is my shepherd. And so God, in all of his glory, David is comparing him to a shepherd, the lowest profession. And David knows what what shepherds do, right? If you recall in Samuel how David was Samuel goes and tries to anoint the next king, and he gets all of the sons of Jesse up there, and then who's missing? David. Samuel asks, is this everyone? The Lord has chosen none of these people. And Jesse says, there is one. He's the youngest, but he's out in the fields doing what? Shepherding, tending the sheep. So David, who wrote this song we know turns out to be king, wasn't even considered at the very beginning. And so not only was he not considered, but what was he doing? He was doing the lowliest profession. He was shepherding sheep, not even a part of his brothers. So we say the Lord is my shepherd. It's this image of God coming down for us and guiding and tending people who stray, people who smell, people who are hard to deal with. And God is entering into our mess. And see, the shepherd cares for his sheep. The shepherd knows the needs of his sheep. The shepherd knows who his sheep are. Now, I want you to read this. It says, the Lord is whose shepherd? My. David doesn't say a shepherd, the shepherd, a faraway shepherd. He says, my shepherd. David writes this in such a personal tone that we're to be connected with the shepherd. So the shepherd knows his sheep, but the sheep also know the shepherd. So there's this aspect of God being communal, in fact, that he knows everyone, but also knows the individual. And so I want you guys to know that tonight. I want myself to know that when I feel like God is far away, when I feel like God doesn't love me, when I feel like there's no way that I could ever be in the presence of God. He is my shepherd. He's our shepherd. So we have the second part, I lack nothing. Now, if you have a black highlighter, this is the part in your Bible that you want to highlight. because we don't want to deal with this, right? Let's just mark out this verse. Let's get rid of it. I lack nothing. But God, you don't understand about my finances. God, you don't understand about all the things that I need to do in my life. God, you don't understand that I've been single for 10 years and God, I want to be married. God, you don't understand all these different things, but the passage says I lack nothing. How crazy is this that the Lord is my shepherd and I lack nothing? And on the flip side, it doesn't, so lack nothing means that you have everything, but on the same token, it says I'm not desiring anything more. So not only am I not lacking anything, but I'm not desiring anything more. I'm perfectly content with the season, the life, what you have given me. David, who's running and fleeing, probably scared out of his mind, says, I lack nothing, Lord, because you are my shepherd. The shepherd knows what the sheep needs. All of our needs are supplied. We don't desire anymore. It says he makes me lie down in green pastures. It's this moment of saying the shepherd knows where the food is. There's nourishment. They don't have to travel to different fields. They don't have to keep walking and tiring themselves out more. It says these green pastures are so luscious, we can stay here for a while. There's rest. There's rest. You know, it's funny, there's a book by a guy named Philip Keller, and he's a shepherd, and the book's literal title is named A Shepherd Looking at Psalms 23. So you have an actual shepherd looking at Psalms 23. And he says the reality is that it's extremely hard to make sheep lie down. Extremely hard, apparently. I'm not a shepherd, but I'll take a shepherd's advice. He says it's extremely hard, and he says there's 4 different things that all need to happen for sheep to actually lie down. And the first one is there needs to be no fear. Sheep are super timid. They're real flighty. And so he's saying there has to be they can't be scared, can't be fearful, any of that stuff. They have to be calm. And then the second one, there can't be any flies or insects or any of the really, really just annoying things, right, that are going to cause sheep to run away. And then the other one is friction. Apparently sheep are really social beings. And so if there's any social friction, right, whenever you get into a little conflict with your bestie, right, you're not going to go to sleep at night. That's what these sheep are doing, right? They're saying, hey, no friction with that, or famine. There has to be a lot of food. And so all 4 of these things need to happen for sheep to even lie down. And it says the shepherd makes the sheep lie down. Now, here's the other funny word in this. I don't know if you've ever caught this. This word makes. Sometimes the shepherd knows what's best for the sheep, even when the sheep don't think so. Makes the sheep lie down. Because the shepherd knows, hey, I know where we're going next. I know what we're walking through. I know when the next green pasture is. I know what's ahead of you. You need to rest. So he makes the sheep lie down. He leads me by quiet waters. It's this sense of restfulness. It's this peace. It's this tranquility. It's literally everything that's not happening in our world. This is probably one of the hardest verses for me to think about. He leads me besides quiet waters, a sense of peace and the sense of rest. I've been prepping this sermon for a while, and I literally this morning realized that I worked a 15-hour day yesterday. So obviously, I'm not preaching to y'all. I'm preaching to myself because I don't know what rest is. Because 15 hours is not restful. But he's saying, in the Lord we lack nothing, which means I don't have to work all the time. It means I don't have to earn a place or an identity that's not mine. It means I can rest in the fact that I know my shepherd and I know he's good. He refreshes my soul, the sense of spiritual nourishment. He guides me, stood the right path for his name's sake. It's crazy to think that this word, he guides me along the right path. It doesn't necessarily mean it's more of a straight path from one direction to the other, right? So if you're sitting right here and you're like, hey, there's a green field, but we're about to eat all the food. We need to go to another field. He's not going to say, all right, we're going to take this huge scenic route. We're going to do all of these walking. We're going to walk around. We're going to probably do some jumping jacks or something like that. He's saying, no, I'm going to take you straight to this path because I don't want to unnecessarily tire you out. It's a straight path for his name's sake, the Lord's reputation and honor, because he is good, because he is perfect, because he is holy, because he is loving, is on the line because he does this. "2015 is the year that I will probably never forget. I won't ever forget. Because 2015 is when this Psalms 23 aspect, a lot of the stuff that's being talked about came into reality for me. Because 2015 is the moment that I switched from doing engineering to ministry. And you could not get any polar opposites. You go from engineering where you're doing a bunch of calculations and you're in an office doing a bunch of math stuff, to where you go to youth ministry where it's all people and all junior hires and you have no space. Two polar opposites. 2015 is a year I will never forget. See, I graduated from a small school, and there's a reason why I waited until this moment to tell you guys I was not an Aggie. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. But I graduated from a small school called Laterno University, way out. Whoever you are, you're my best friend. Whoever you are. But a small school called Laterno University, super small school. Graduated as an engineer. I did the victory lap, which means I finished in 4.5 years. And then I went to work for an oil company. And part of the oil company was I had to spend a year on an oil rig. So I graduated as an engineer. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go conquer the world. I'm going to build all this stuff. And then they send me out to an oil rig to do hard manual labor, which is why I got into school, so I don't have to do this. But I spent 10 months doing this. And to catch everybody up on speed, here is what a typical oil rig will look like. This is from my company that I work for. I didn't necessarily work on this one, but this is the general plot of land. Another close-up would be this. And so for 10 months, I would travel to either Oklahoma or I would travel to South Texas, and I would spend 14 days straight working on an oil rig at 12-hour days. So 14 days straight, 12-hour days, and I would get 7 days off. Right? Sounds like a life. It's great. I did nothing but work. And I did that for 10 months. And it was the hardest, most fulfilling time ever. And then I got done with my 10 months. I started working in the office. I had everything from a high-paying job to notoriety because I'd finally finished all of my roughnecking. I had everything in life going for me. And I felt this restlessness, this emptiness. And I don't know if you've ever felt like that restlessness that you know is from God, because there's no reason you should be feeling it. And so over the course of a week, I talked with 3, coincidentally, previous youth pastors of mine. And I was like, hey, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm walking through. And all of them, their wisdom was, you should really consider youth ministry. I was like, did you not just see what I just did? I just roughnecked. Don't put me in youth ministry, right? But I was like, okay, I'll think about it. So I remember just praying, and the peace that came with just thinking and praying and meditating and talking with other people. This peace that doesn't make sense when we're talking about the Lord is my shepherd, knowing that the path that God is pulling me on. I said, okay. So within 2 weeks, I quit my job. I enrolled full-time in seminary, almost a month late. And I started working and volunteering for my church. 6 months after that, I was full-time youth minister, and 3.5 years later, I'm standing up here with y'all. If you would have told me back in my engineering days, hey, Sam, guess what? 4 years from now, you're going to be in youth ministry up at Grace Bible Church. False? Bet. Challenge me. That's not going to work, right? But no, the Lord direct, and I could go back and just see so many different movements of God. In the moment, I was like, this is insane. This is not going to work. There's no way, God, you are good with this. But no, he moved and he weaved all of these things together. And the crazy thing is, that's just my life. Your life is woven together like this as well. There's moments in your life, there's seasons, there's things that you can put together in your life and say, wow, outside of the Lord, there's no way that could happen. So we have this, how the Lord is directing, the Lord is my shepherd, I'm trusting and confident in the Lord. But wouldn't that be easy if that was all? Wouldn't that be nice, right? But we still have verse 4. Which, again, if you got a black highlighter, let's just cross this one. Let's highlight this verse because we don't like this part. And it's this how the Lord protects. So let's read verse 4. It says, even though I walk through the darkest valley. You guys notice the change? Even though I walk through the darkest valley. You go from this nice, peaceful, tranquil moment with the good shepherd, and then you have this, hey, we're going through the darkest valley, everybody heads up. And the crazy thing is it doesn't say if you walk through the darkest valley. It says what? When. Unfortunately, in this life, we are not exempt from trials. We are not exempt from suffering. We're not exempt from anything that is just perfect in life. But we're going to see in a moment we have a good shepherd who leads and walks with us through these moments. And this darkest valley has this imagery of being in this deep valley where you're looking around and there's nothing you can see. Everything is pitch black and there's just no escape. There's no escape. That's the imagery. And shepherds would lead their sheep through these valleys because sometimes the right paths do go through the darkest valleys. And I will fear no evil, for you are with me. A couple things to note. It doesn't say I will fear evil, right? Or that God's going to get rid of evil. Right? He doesn't say that. He says I will get and walk with you through the fear, right? And then the other thing, it's slight, but it's cool. It says, for who is with me? You are with me. See, at this moment, the pronouns change when David is talking. He goes from saying he, right, like God is doing this, he is doing this, to what? You. As if God was standing right in front of him saying, you are with me, Lord. And so when we go through trials, when we go through suffering, when we go through these darkest valleys where we feel like there's no way that we can get out, David is saying, God, you are right there with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. And there's debate about whether or not these are two separate things or if they're the same thing. But regardless, right, the rod, the staff, what do? They fight off enemies outside, right, like wild beasts, anybody that's trying to harm them. But they also fight off enemies within the herd, right? Because sheep, what do? They wander, they travel. And so what does a good shepherd do? Push them back in line, right? So the good shepherd not only knows the enemies outside, but he also knows the enemies within the sheep themselves that get them to wander, that get them to move, that get them to flee. So the good shepherd, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. I also wish that my story would have been as clean cut as it was, as I told you. Because while God was moving massively in all of the areas of my life, there was a 6-month period after my first, or 6 months after my first youth ministry gig, I started to burn out, right? Common phrase is you're burning both sides of the candle. I was overworked. I felt alone. I was tired. I was frustrated because I couldn't see growth. And I was like, God, why in the world would you take me and move me and do all these crazy things with my life only to abandon me, only to feel like I'm alone, only to feel like I'm a failure because none of my students are growing and I feel like I'm failing this ministry? And that spiral led to another spiral, which led to another spiral, which led to another spiral. And ended up being a year to a year and a half of a deep depression that the Lord walked me through. And I wish I could say, I was like, man, that was great. I went from engineering, now I'm in seminary, now I'm doing youth ministry, and God's been good, and there's never been a moment I've ever doubted. But that's not true. And the reality is you're probably tracking with me because that's probably really similar to your life. You have moments where the Lord is faithful. You have moments where things are great and moments that things are awesome. And then moments where you just feel this deep despair, this deep alone, this deep hurting. God, how can you be my great shepherd? How can you guide me when I'm stuck here? And I believe that the Lord really is with us in those moments. I believe that the Lord is the good shepherd who provides and protects. And even though we have to walk through the darkest valleys, I believe that he comforts, sustains, and brings us through them. And in those moments, that hurts. And I know. But looking back, and if you look back at your life, you can see ways that God has moved. I always like at the end to ask this question to my students, so what? So what? 2 words. Sam, you just said all this cool stuff about God. I get it. He's my shepherd. He provides. He protects. He does all this thing. I get that. That's cool. So what? Who cares? Why are we here? You guys just spent 30 minutes listening to this. We're singing songs. Why are we here? Because here's the reality. I think when we look at the story of Psalms 23, I think we begin to draw out that there's 4 different kind of types of sheep. If the Lord is our good shepherd and we are the sheep in the story, I believe there's 4 different types of sheep. And I believe that all of us here tonight, are one of them. And to be edgy, I've given them kind of cool names, right? And so this first sheep is the shepherdless sheep. Shepherdless, right? You may be sitting here today and you're like, Sam, this is literally my first Junction. My friend said that this was great and we would have fun and we would do table groups and stuff like that. And so this is my first time. This is not what I expected, right? And so you may be sitting here and you're like, man, I don't even know what I think about this Jesus guy. I don't even know about that. You may be like, he sounds like a great shepherd, but I don't think I'm there yet. I don't know if he would really accept me for who I am. I don't know if there's a moment where he would want me because I'm smelly, because I'm stinky. You don't know the things I've done, Sam. You don't know the stuff I've been a part of. There's no way that a good shepherd would ever accept me into his flock. But he does. There's a passage in Matthew that talks about how the shepherd leaves the 99 to go for the one. And you may feel like that one tonight. And God would still chase you. So if that's you today, if you feel like you're the shepherdless sheep, my encouragement is to talk with your table leader. When we break into small groups later on tonight, that you talk with them, say, hey, what did Sam talk about with this Jesus guy, with this guy? What does it mean to be a part of a flock? Because these are great conversations, great moments of gospel clarity. And that the God of the universe sent his son to die for us, for me, for you. Not because you earned anything, not because you did anything, not because you deserved it, but because he freely gave that because he loved you. And so if you identify with the shepherdless sheep, talk with your table group tonight. These are great moments. You have the second sheep, which, to be honest with you, is the sheep that I fall in with, right? I align with, which means you got to give them a super edgy name, right? So these are the trailblazers, right? These are the sheep that do their own thing. They see the shepherd and the rest of the flock, and they're like, ha, suckers, I'm going this way, right? I don't need you guys. I know there's a green pasture over there. I know there's something this way. In fact, why don't y'all follow me, right? It's the classic example of the sheep leading the shepherd and saying, shepherd, can you please hurry up and join me? So if you're anything like me, I have a lot of shepherds. Very rarely do I trust the good shepherd. And so maybe that's you today. Maybe you're like, Sam, man, I believe in this Jesus guy. I believe in this Christianity. But I just want to do my own thing. I feel like I've been running from God. I feel like I've been trying to do things on my own. And the reality is come back to the flock. Because there's a lot of shepherds out there, and none of them will fulfill you. None of them will fulfill you. The amount of followers you have on Facebook, Twitter, MySpace, whatever old stuff happens, right? Doesn't matter. I made a MySpace joke to some of my students, and they were like, what's that? That hurts. That hurts. But are you trying to follow other shepherds? And if you're like, Sam, I don't think I'm trying to follow other shepherds, answer this question. If you had one thing, fill in the blank, whatever that one thing is, if you had that one thing, would you feel complete? Would you feel fulfilled? If you're like, Sam, if I just had this one thing, you have no idea. Sam, if I just got this job promotion, if I just got that, I would feel great. Sam, I've been single for so long. If I just had a relationship, that'd be great. If I could just get married, if I could just have job success, if I could just have money, if I could just have fame, if I could just have whatever your just have moment is going to be a terrible shepherd. It's going to be a terrible shepherd. So you may identify with that trailblazing group, which is the area that I align with. And our third edgy sheep is the Valley Walkers, which sounds like a great band if you're ever in the need of a band name. But the Valley Walkers, right? These are the people that are walking through the valley. Feels like there's no way out. Feels like you're alone. Feels like you're isolated. Feels like you were just living in tension with your sin. And you feel like there's no way a good shepherd would ever lead you, much less walk with you through that. And so oftentimes when we come to hard times, Psalms 23 says, walk through the valley, which means what? That you're making progress. Sometimes that progress seems so small. Sometimes it seems like great leaps, but are you walking through? And if you're anything with me, like me, sometimes I'm carrying a tent with skillets and food, and I'm not walking. I'm actually just pitching a tent in this valley. Just pitching a tent, saying, God, there's no way you can do this. Might as well just make this my dwelling place because I'm going to stay here forever. And I get that. I feel that. But the Lord walks with you through that. And then the last sheep, right, the shepherded sheep, this is the one we all want to be, is the one that is so fixed on the shepherd, so transfixed, so following so much in their footsteps that nothing else matters. When I was on that whitewater rafting trip, I could have closed my eyes and just listened to the tour guide because his verbal commands were the only thing I needed. It didn't matter what I looked at in the ravine. It didn't matter what the waves were looking like next to me. It didn't matter what was ahead of me because the only thing that did was his commands of saying, row, row, row. See, if we are in the shepherded group, part of God's flock, it doesn't matter where the danger is. It doesn't matter if we're where the green pastures are, the quiet waters. It doesn't matter about any of that stuff because we trust in the shepherd to know where those are. We're saying, I'm trusting the good shepherd. I'm going to keep walking. I'm going to keep doing that. So that's the ideal. That's where I would love all us to be. But the reality is that sometimes that's hard. And we go through seasons. And we feel like we're all these different sheep, sometimes at once. Sometimes it changes. But I just want you to imagine with me, imagine that you perfectly gave everything to the Lord. You perfectly followed the good shepherd. What would your life look like? What would your relationships at work look like? What would your success look like? Would you be content with what you have? What would your family look like? What would your church look like? If you said, I am so fixated in following in the good shepherd's footsteps that it doesn't matter what happens out here because I know and I trust that you will lead me, guide me, and walk with me. May we be people, maybe we be young adults who know that the Lord is the good shepherd who provides and protects. Provides and protects. Two things, one statement. The Lord is a good shepherd who provides and protects. We're going to have the band come up on stage, and we're going to close with a prayer. But my hope tonight my hope as young adults, my hope as peers, that we would walk through life transfixed on the Good Shepherd, knowing that he provides everything. That I'm not desiring extra things, that I'm content with what I have because of the Good Shepherd. So as we pray, I want to read and pray through Psalms 23 for y'all and for me. So we're going to pray through Psalms 23, and I just want us to listen, reflect on what God is doing, reflect on Psalms 23, a passage that majority of us have probably heard for so long, but I think has so many depths and so many avenues and so many different ways that we can connect and be a part of the Good Shepherd's flock. So pray with me. Dear Lord, you are my shepherd, my good shepherd. You give me everything I need and more than I want. All I need in you is life, plus you give me even more. Even the most difficult places in life are like green meadows as long as you are there. And in the desert seasons of my journey and the drought-like conditions of my heart, you quench my thirst. And you give me peace that passes all understanding. By your grace, I have learned to boast in my weakness and pose and pretend less. For when I come to the end of my strength, you faithfully meet me there, granting me rest in the weariness and strength of my tired heart. I'm so grateful that you have both marked the path for me and that you yourself are my way, the truth, and the life. I want to honor your name much more than I want to go my way and get my way. Jesus, you never promised me the journey towards the new heaven and new earth would be easy, quick, or without seasons, but you have promised to never leave me or forsake me, even in the darkest valley. That's all I really need to know, Lord, that you are close, that you love me, and that you won't let anything happen to me outside of your perfect plan. Even when you have to discipline me, the goal is my comfort and are always your glory. You are my shepherd, O Lord, my good, good shepherd.